Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Pranic Healing Podcast. On today's episode, we have Professor and Dr. Sanjay Swarup from the Singapore National University. And today's episode, we're going to talk about part two of the pranic healing research with Dr. Sanjay. We initially talked about the pranic agriculture and the exciting findings on an earlier episode. And today we're going to talk about the microbiome study that was done in New York, along with a lot of arhatic yogi practitioners. So we'll dive deep with Sanjay and talk about a lot of the amazing findings that came up through that research and the collaboration and the process of getting it published as well. So please welcome Sanjay.
Thanks, Jason. It's always a pleasure sharing what kind of science we are able to bring to the pranic healing, and this time arhatic yoga, uh, uh, to help mainstream that these two areas that we talk about in our school, with embedded with science, so that it connects with the current modern thinking of our practitioners. So thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Yes, and it's always a pleasure to speak with you, Sanjay, especially to have a professional, a professor, a researcher like yourself in the field of pranic healing and arhatic yoga. I think we're very lucky and grateful to have you in doing the work that you're doing. So let's kind of jump right into it, Sanjay. So can you tell us a little about the basic overview of the pranic healing research regarding the microbiome? Because I think that's a very popular topic nowadays, right? A lot of people are talking about the microbiome because there's different microbiomes. So people take probiotics and things like that. But before we jump in, let's kind of describe what is a microbiome and why is it important.
Yeah. So microbes, as we know, this is from our high school, biology. Microbes have been there in evolution. They came before the more complex organisms, plants, animals, and certainly before humans. So our bodies, our functions have and what has resulted is that in our present form, if we see, our bodies are actually working very closely with numerous microbes. And the current estimate is that if we look at the number of cells in our bodies of human cells, we have an almost equal number, slightly more, of the microbial cells. So these are covering all our bodies, and there are many different types. So there are thousands and thousands of different types of microbes, no matter where we look in our body, whether it is skin, gut, eye, mouth, and so on, right? And because of that, these communities of microbes, because they are of thousands of different types, these communities are called microbiomes. The word comes from two different parts. One is micro, as in microscopic. We can't see them with our naked eyes, as we know. But the second part are the biomes, which consist of the entire living group of organisms, which are microscopic in this case. So that's the term microbiome. Sometimes you will also see in literature microbiota. More or less, for this purpose, we can say that they refer to the same group of microbiomes, right? So we can have microbiomes of the skin, gut, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so it sounds like that's incredible. I didn't know that. Like, there's almost equal or more number of these microorganisms than are all of our cells combined. Wow, that's a fun fact right there, and kind of lends itself to the next question. Well, why are they so important, right? Because if it's that many of them in our body, they must serve a function, right? Is there something to that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there are thousands and thousands of these in our on and inside our bodies, and so this group, they belong to different types of microbes. if you can see that our human body will have, few thousands of genes, but if you look at the diversity of the microbes, and they will have an equally, if not more, diverse genes that they carry, which perform the functions. And so they have even a greater combination of genes than the human genes. So our bodies have something, you can imagine, it's like the cake and the icing, but the icing is almost the same size as the cake, but it gives a very huge variety of functions to supplement and complement the functions totally what we have. We are a living organism with two parts, human, as in our classical understanding of human, and the bacteria, which together perform these functions. So let's say, gut people know that when we take antibiotics, for example, we will reduce the number of microbes, right, in the gut. And after taking antibiotics, our body goes through, some level of discomfort. That's right away. It tells us that these are essential for a healthy gut function, and therefore all the market of probiotics and so on. Likewise, in all parts of the body. In fact, we used to think, surgeons used to think that there will be certain parts of the body where there will be no microbes. But we know that even in places like placenta, there are microbes present. There are in the veins and arteries, there are circulating microbes. When we get the arterial, clogging and things, microbes coming from there. And where we have not seen microbes, the metabolites that are produced by microbes, the chemicals produced by the microbes, they can pass through certain barriers in our body, and they can even reach the brain. We'll maybe get later into that.
Get
So a
into it.
lot of importance of the functions. Yeah.
Right. Well, it sounds like not only that there's an equal number of icing to the cake, it sounds like the icing is everywhere inside the cake, not
Yeah,
just in
inside
layers.
out.
Yeah, so that's incredible, Sanjay. You really described the abundance of these microbes, and like you said, it does have a commensal or supportive relationship to our physical health. When you mentioned you're taking antibiotics, and some people don't feel too well, especially in their gut after taking antibiotics. But eventually, it sounds like this microbiome, these microbes tend to come back to a certain level where which we call normal health, being healthy. So that's excellent. That I think that paints a really good picture for us to understand like what is the microbiome and why is it important. So, let's jump straight into the research part related to the work that you're doing and you conducted for arhatic yogi practitioners in a spiritual retreat setting. So tell us about the idea behind the research. Why with arhatic yogis, and sort of the reasoning for actually approaching this research question.
Yeah. So how it started, right? In the field of meditations and yoga, there have been more recent reports because of this realization of the importance of microbiomes in our bodies, the functioning of our bodies. So, people have been publishing in the last few years, but it has been, I should say, more recent, less than 10 years, it has started. It is now slowly picking up. And the reasons I've mentioned just now, the importance. So there are a few things that are quite unique to what we were attempting to do, because there is an opportunity that came, when arhatic yogis meet in spiritual vacations or retreats. We are together doing same practices over a short but intense period, period of intense activities. And the activities are fairly well, there is a structure to those activities. So this gave us an opportunity, which came through Master Glenn Mendoza, and Master Glenn and Master Merilak every year in the month of July in Bovina, upstate New York. They have a spiritual vacation where a number of arhatic yogis, both early stage and senior arhatic yogis, they are practicing together, typically for a period of 9 days. So it's relatively short period, and during this time, as I mentioned, well regimented, not only the practices of Arhatic Yoga, but also of the diet, nutrition, the environment, the sleeping times, waking times, exercise regimes. Almost everything is fairly homogeneous. So this gave a very, very excellent opportunity for us, and to address the role of microbiomes in the short period in a group of arhatic yogis. Of course, we are all different in the age groups, gender, the level of practices. Some are very intensive, regular, some are starting, and so on, right? So that was the opportunity we wanted to capture. And compared to what's in the literature, as I was mentioning, the role of microbiomes has been studied over longer periods of time, and not in the same place. So there are what we call many underlying variations or factors that will contribute to variations. So they get confounded. And to remove that noise, you need to have very large cohorts, which recently are happening in the level of a few hundreds and being followed over several months of time. So, in the recent years, we thought that let's finish this gap, address this gap. And for that, we designed a clinical trial with Master Glenn and with his very talented team. They really helped. This team came from PHRI, Pranic Healing Research Institute, and we worked with several other partners. A company that does microbiome analysis, produces raw data for us, and so on. So we can talk about how it was done, but basically, that's what gave us the incentive to come out with this. This was the first attempt to put science into arhatic yoga practices, that how our body is responding. We took that as the first attempt, and what we are talking about is the first study that was done in the year 2023, July. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, excellent. Well, that's very exciting, right? To have a this evidence in arhatic yoga practice, and like you mentioned, it's sort of like the perfect place and the perfect time with this spiritual vacation in upstate New York that is led by Master Glenn and Master Marilag. So it, like you said, it was like a perfect opportunity to kind of address and fill in this gap. Um, and I think you were kind of leading into it. So basically, we understand the reasoning behind the study, and to kind of highlight the potential benefits of not only our arhatic yoga practice, but eliminating all those confounding factors that you mentioned, and having the same exercise, diet, right, same environment. So what was being measured in the study, and how was it measured, and what were basically the results of the study?
Yeah. So this, as I mentioned, was a 9 day retreat. Uh, what we uh, uh, what we structured the study was to have, at the start, when the practitioners come to the retreat on day one, middle of the retreat, which would be around 3 or 4 days, and around 4 days, and then at the end of the retreat, we took samples, which was another unique. The way the study was structured, from saliva and fecal samples. We took those, and both oral and fecal samples from a single study at the same time. This has not been done for meditation and yoga studies to look at the markers, right? So maybe just I take a sidestep. Why I use the word markers is because microbes are in thousands. So any changes happening, you will have thousand opportunities to record those changes, which more or less might be yes, independent of each other. So we can use them as markers of change, right? Indicators of change. Just like in blood, we have several markers that when we go for blood report or urine report, except here, these will be in several thousands. And that's what we took, right? Along with this, we took data on the demographics of the participants. We took, with the consent, there was a proper regulatory approval, ethical approval that was taken. We had inclusion and exclusion criteria. Normally, in clinical trials, we have to define what type of attributes of the participants will allow them to be included, or they might not be able to participate at that time in the study. And so for this, we started with a group of 24 participants. We started initially with 27, it came down to 24, which is a very good number for a trial like this. It was all with healthy individuals, so we were very lucky, and thanks to all the arhatic yoga practices and led by Master Glenn, it was in record time that we got the approvals and things with the help of PHRI, volunteers and services. We were able to pull this together. So, food diary, the diet plan, exercise plan for the entire 9-day period. So, that would help us relate the changes that were happening with those of the practices and the lifestyle that was being done.
Mm. Wow, that's incredible. It sounds like it everything came together in record time and also finished in record time. Um, because we know the 9 days flies by pretty quick. So, it sounds like you said, both oral and fecal samples were being collected. So usually when you go on vacation, you don't expect your fecal samples to be collected, but this is for the name of science. So it sounds like it was a pretty good success in terms of like most people are healthy, right? Coming from pranic healing or arhatic yoga, the whole practice is to make you not only more spiritual but healthy as well. So that's great to hear. And like you mentioned, there's thousands of markers that were being measured based on all these thousands of microbes. So what did the results first, what were the results and what is the meaning of the results, because those two are different things that can be interpreted differently for us.
Yeah, so that was the whole intention, is to look at what is happening in a very short period of time, and then compare it with what's known in the literature, and then make some very uh, very uh, collected and very conservative interpretation, so we don't over interpret. Of course, at the same time, it gives us ideas and what we call hypotheses to be generated further. So when putting this together, it was we took a leap of faith that 9 days, will we even see any microbial change? It's such a short period of time, right? There was nothing in the literature on any yoga meditation, like I mentioned, where people have documented changes in this short period of time and doing almost the same things. So that was a big risk, and that was the first question we were asking: will there be any changes, both in the oral and fecal? So we started by looking at in the markers of the microbiome changes over the 3 time points that we had: start, middle, and end of the spiritual vacation. that how many of the thousands, they were almost a double. I mean, that's quite well known that the gut, which is represented through the fecal samples, has doubled, almost double the number of microbial species and entities, different types, compared to those in the saliva or oral environment. So, over a period of time, it was very, very clear in the oral changes, the oral microbiome changes, that they became more diverse than we had started. Okay. And they became more even between the different participants. So, what does this mean, right? Um, so, when the diversity increases, means some more species got recruited in the mouth cavity, in the through the saliva, uh, over this 9-day period. Although everybody is eating the same food, but overall they started having more diversity. So, in the field of microbes, microbial ecology, it makes the system of the oral health more stable, because we were talking earlier that different microbes, they provide different functions or different benefits. So now, if you have a larger basket of these benefits, being provided, that gives us a better overall outcome in the oral health. That's well established in the field of microbial ecology. Now, in the fecal, there were also changes, and these were happening over also between the participants. We saw that there were changes happening which were very significant. This When I use the word significant, I'm referring to statistical significance, because we are using thousands and thousands of different species, different markers, following them over a period of time. So a lot of statistics and high computational power is needed. So I'll just say, in terms of the results, how did we find this? We use some very cutting edge technologies in genome sequencing. This is called the next generation sequencing, and a specific type of next generation sequencing called amplicon sequencing, which uses, of course, the well known by now in public is PCR method, to amplify or to increase the amount of DNA from specific part of the genome, which is like the thumbprint of the microbial species. So this region in the genome gets amplified, and then we can collect those from all the different microbes which are in a, in a soup, in a collection or mixture, and from there we sequence them. And from the sequence we can then go into our databases of sequences, and then match that, okay, which sequence belongs to which species. And that's what gave us these results of the oral and microbiome changes in the fecal environment. So this was very heartening. I had a very big sigh of relief, because had there been no change, a lot of logistics and all the efforts, of course, every science tells us about something very, very important, but this was very significant, and we were very excited on the day that we saw this. We had partnered with a company in Canada which provides this service. So we were working very closely with them when they gave us the raw data. And then the raw data we brought to Singapore, and then that's where the whole analysis started. So this took a lot of effort, a lot of coordination, cooperation by the participants, like you were mentioning, Jason. In a vacation, people very had to regiment their, collecting these and so on, and then transporting it and so on. So there were lots of logistics issues, but it all came together, and these results were very, very heartening. This was the first layer of results that came, and I have just shared what does it mean at the first pass, when we have more richness and evenness in the oral. we didn't see those changes on recruitment of additional microbes in the gut. So it's a very specific response in the oral environment. So possibly, when we are taking good food, as you know, arhatic yogis in the retreats and spiritual vacation will have healthy vegetarian food, and so that would have contributed. I should say, the way it was conducted, the spiritual practices were followed by all, same food was followed by all. So it's a combination of all these practices. So diet is part of arhatic yoga practices. So in our claims, we will be saying it's that combination. It's basically the lifestyle with the arhatic yoga practices that brings out these changes. And then we can go into what do these changes mean further. So you can actually take it further by doing more analysis of the functions, which is very, very interesting. So, but before I come to function, maybe we can go next later. But in terms of the diversity, what was important is that this diversity increased even within 3 days for the fecal, and in the fecal between the participants. And so we asked that, if you remember, I mentioned that we recorded how frequently people were doing their meditation. And we all know twin heart meditation, our favorite and the core in arhatic yoga and pranic healing, is practiced by all. So how frequently are they doing it? We also tried to find out for the junior or early stage participants versus seniors who have been doing this for a good number of years. What were these changes? Were these changes different? So maybe I one by one I just explain these two before we move to function. So first, the results were very common, very striking, statistically significant, that participants who were practicing arhatic yoga meditations, twin heart meditations, right, more frequently, their microbes converged to a very common type of profile by the end of the 9 day retreat. Okay. So you and I, we all will carry quite different microbiomes, let's say, when we start. But during this intensive common set of lifestyle and practices, spiritual practices, it kind of led to convergence of microbes in a common profile because of these thousands of markers. Now, same thing happened with the senior level Arhatic yoga practitioners, practitioners who were level 3 or above versus level 2, prep 1 and 2. They're also converged, but this convergence was more prominent and faster, more cleaner in the senior practitioners. What it means is, any of us who are doing these practices more regularly, and with the intensity that happens with more practice, that leads to a very, very strong favorable outcome, which is even the early stage prep level 1 and 2, or less frequent meditators who were doing, say, twin hearts once or twice a week also, even they showed this convergence, but it was more prominent when in those cases where the practices were more regular and intense. So this was very, very interesting insight into into this, the outcome of our practices in our body microbiome responses. So you had asked, I'll finish this segment by just saying, what does this mean? It means that if many different things at the start are converging to a common point, means there is a strong selection or drive that is bringing them to a common point. If many different things are coming to a common point, means there is something that is leading to it. So this combination of lifestyle and arhatic yoga practices was and is a very strong selective force that within a short period of time brings these
Yeah.
changes.
Well, that's first of all very incredible. I think this is just groundbreaking by the details that you've highlighted, Sanjay. Just by the uh, period, the very short time period, and the convergence or the driving force for a certain profile to be matched by most people. And to emphasize the point that this is the combination of lifestyle, nutrition, and meditation yoga practice, because I think you mentioned in the literature there's nothing that which I'm curious about. There's probably nothing in the literature that highlights maybe just even nutrition showing that amount of change, right? Nutrition where people eat the same diet, but perhaps their oral fecal microbiome doesn't um, converge to increase diversity, increase in evenness in such a short period of time. Correct? Because that would be like the like how would you compare that to if there was like a control group? Control group would just have the diet part and not the lifestyle meditation yoga part. Does that question make sense for you, Sanjay?
Yeah, so thanks for asking that, because when we start looking at these microbes, the types of microbes that changed, we could identify, as I mentioned in the approach we were using, the scientific approach. We could say that in the literature, the ones that are getting enriched or changed throughout this 9 day period, what are they known to do in the body according to literature, right? So we could see where those functions are coming from. But I'll come to that. But before that, these rapid changes because of nutrition or lifestyle, you are right. A 9 day period was not really reported, but where changes, the short term changes have been reported, are in some very, very specific cases. And the cases were of athletes, professional athletes, and very intensively exercising athletes who do something called HIIT, heat,
Yes.
the high intensity interval
Interval
training,
training. Yeah.
right? Or it has also been reported by people in the armed forces or military who do very intensive exercises in a short period of time. In those cases, changes have been reported. But in our case, I wouldn't say our level of exercises are, at the physical level, are at that level. Of course, we have very different energetic responses to those exercises we do, right? That's how it has been designed by Master Choa. So uh, so that is extremely interesting, that the benefits we are seeing, the signatures we are seeing, are comparable to something where you need actually very heavy investment of time, energy, and body has to be at a certain level. So that was something very unique that came out.
I see. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like again there's nothing anything like quite like what you're doing in terms of the research. So it kind of lends it to even more significant and maybe it will show more about the potential benefits of, again, arhatic yoga practice. But kind of lending to that next point, you were going to speak about the functions of these changes of these specific you know, uh, the different diversity among the microbial species, because there is a lot of functions. Like you said, there's thousands of them. Just like blood markers, each thing means a different thing. So, how did you kind of sort that out and kind of put it together to understand the potential changes and the benefits?
Yeah, so uh, microbiome world is quite hot these days. Lots of researchers in the last several years have been working, and whenever we publish, the data becomes publicly available, and that has led to a lot of resources being built in terms of the quantum of data. So from the point of generating data, there is a huge amount that's coming. The sequencing machines, the genome sequencing machines, are now within the realm of more and more labs, because costs have come down and so on. They are more efficient, and so huge amounts of data populates these databases. On the other hand, as we have all been seeing this revolution in the computational aspects in our lives, because of the digital transformations, the big data field is has come up with many interesting and efficient ways to look at big data. So just for our viewers of this podcast, the amount of data that was generated in this erratic spiritual vacation was processed on supercomputers in Singapore. We have a national supercomputing facility, and there those are the types of resources we do to actually use some of this data. And some of it was, of course, done in our servers, which we use on a day-to-day basis. We have our own big data servers to supplement this in our regular work. So it took, therefore, biologists, computational biologists, or data science people, and understanding of the physiology. And for that, we had, of course, Master Glenn, who also is a very renowned and experienced, doctor who understands, a clinician who understands the functioning of the human body. So that helped us understand. We had some other clinicians, early stage, early career clinicians from Singapore, Dr. Vaishnavi, who joined us, several others from PHRI, Dr. Valerie and Marianne Chung, and things that came together. Blot and Dr. Susan Rottenberg. She's a biochemist, so it required a lot of the brain power from many different fields to come together. So the way it was done is looking at data, what are the significant changes that were happening, then mapping those to literature, that those microbes are known to provide what kind of functions, and then interpreting them in human functions or benefits to humans. So largely in the fecal, what we saw were a number of those microbes were getting enriched, who provide, of course, better gut health, who are known to provide better gut health. For example, beyond the digestion, they improve the immunity related through the gut system. They improve the intestinal barrier, so that you don't get a lot of ulcers and various other issues in the gut system, or IBD precursors. So they are all brought down if we go by the database and predicting based on databases. In addition, very interestingly, many of the microbes that got enriched, they provide metabolites or chemicals, which come out. They go into circulation. They are known to go into circulation of the blood, and then those chemicals will cross the blood-brain barrier, and when they cross the blood brain barrier, they will affect, they will be in the brain. And so they have been shown in previous studies, these metabolites, they will be affecting the brain functions and bring better health of the brain. And therefore there could be a gut and brain axis, which is already known to be mediated by the microbes that got enriched in arhatic yoga vacation, spiritual vacation, or within 9 days, right? So imagine if we continue this, what will happen at the physical level, in addition to all the other energy level. So this was happening in the gut system, immunity, and others I've mentioned. In the oral, what happened was we were able to see a recruitment of new members and enrichment over time. So it was, overall community shift was more significant. The ones that came out, of course, the digestion again and so on, and oral immunity came up, the microbes associated with them. But interestingly, those that produce chemicals, beneficial chemicals that improve our heart function, also came up. So there is a link between oral and heart functioning. Their health seems to be related. It's in the literature, that's quite well known, through a chemical called nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is a signaling or a messenger molecule, which can then bring a benefit. If the oral health improves, then some of these microbes, they will produce nitric oxide, which will then affect the health of the heart. And so we can see that between organ health, and therefore a potential balance could be brought out by these complementary health benefits, which go beyond the oral, beyond the gut region. So very interesting overall, gut brain in our and oral heart. In our arhatic yoga, also we understand the importance of the chakras in the head area that control different parts of the brain, and the solar and navel areas, where solar plexus and navel areas, where which will control these. And we understand from Master Choa's teachings, there are connections between them. And this is a physical correspondence that we'll be able to, at least the physical part will be published very soon. So, but it corresponds to these other advanced teachings that Master Choa has kindly gifted to to us.
Yes. Wow. Um, Thank you so much for explaining all that. That's amazing how we kind of started talking about the functions of it all, but it really, you can take it to almost so many areas in the body. I mean, it sounds like there's so much more work that can be drawn upon, right, in terms of future considerations for this initial study. And it, what this reminds me of, Sanjay, is so much of science has been, when I say science, I mean like clinical science, has been reductionism, right? Focusing on one area, one system. What does this one molecule do? But I feel like with the microbiome and in general, it lends itself, as you've mentioned, it's connected to the heart, right? In terms of nitric oxide, connected to the brain, right? The gut brain connection. And like you mentioned, so is the energy system that Master Choa has taught to us in terms of the chakras being connected to one another, and how the state of health of one chakra actually influences the state of health of other chakras, because we're all connected, beings, physically, emotionally, mentally, and, as we know, energetically. So this is just really exciting, Sanjay, and I think you mentioned it already. Further developments. Because you mentioned the areas of the heart health and brain health and all these metabolites. But where do we go from here based on these initial findings and results?
Yeah, so in the first study, which was in 2022, sorry, we had done the signatures. I was talking about the thumbprint, one part of the whole microbial genome, and then looked at all these functions and diversity and such, right? Then we got encouraged by these by that first years of study, and so Master Glenn encouraged us again through PHRI, and the same group of the volunteers and people doing service. together with participants. I should say that we are very thankful to the participants, right? Because if they would not have agreed, nobody can force anyone, right? It's their goodwill that they're doing it. And so again, they signed up and are very eager and very helpful in that sense. And so we were able to repeat that with some changes, and then we added another location, Master Glenn, through his center. He also has another in Tampa, Florida. So we had other fellow arhatic yogis from that center who contributed in a different way, which we are still in the process of analyzing and so on. But what came out was this time we are able to then do the sequencing of the entire genomes, because now we know that in 9 days we are seeing changes, and which microbes we will know exactly what functions are they capable of performing, and not making second guesses based on the thumbprint, right? Based on the fingerprint. And so this collection of the entire genomes, this is where the supercomputing will be needed, even a lot more, and we are set up for that. So this is what we will be pursuing. More important, so it will give us more precision, more confidence in predicting these functions. So we bring it to the next step. But very interestingly, so coming from Singapore, we talk about making things very tangible, right? That's how we bring it out. So one is, of course, providing the science that as we do our hatha yoga practices with the combined lifestyle that is advised in this school, what are the changes? So that's for the practitioners. At the same time, we will have microbial, good microbes and the benefits that they are providing. I gave some examples. So we can actually start bringing them into culture to develop some sort of probiotics based on Arhatic Yoga signatures. So, Arhatic Yoga inspired probiotics or rationally designed probiotics, we could be going in that direction. And that could be something that can supplement us along with the exercises in the lifestyle with the diet, these kinds of probiotics. You mentioned probiotics as we started, so it's coming a whole circle
Yeah.
to developing probiotic. It has to be tested. It's but that's a vision we are creating right now, and hopefully it will materialize in not so distant future.
Well, that's incredible. The first thing I thought about was like, oh man, if I take this level 3 arhatic yoga probiotic, that means I'll be level 3 in no time, right? Without a, of course, you have to do the arhatic yoga practice as well, but it's just very exciting and interesting that such a spiritual practice can be distilled and condensed into something like a probiotic that a lot of people know about and take. And we know the benefits of our hot yoga practice, and we know the benefits of probiotics. So it's a very interesting merge of two worlds that don't necessarily come to mind when we think about them. So excellent. So I think that's all that I really had to ask for today, Sanjay. For our listeners out there, how can we support this research, or future pranic healing research? Is there anything that we can do, or lend a hand, or in terms of charity or donations or anything like that?
Yeah. So this will require people, right? And there is more that is encouraged from this teamwork and initial promising results. And as these will get published, these are very next generation sequencing, high intensity data computing, and so on. These are cutting edge technologies, but they require funds and such. So we are very grateful that at this point PHRI has seeded this. But you're right, Jason. As we go forward, for us to contribute this to the entire world, to the big meditation yoga community worldwide. These findings are going into public domain, right? So hopefully it will spread what we are doing. So we spent a long time, crafting how to explain arhatic yoga in a scientific publication. So whatever the support we are getting is going to bring out the importance, and how it can, pranic healing and arhatic yoga can connect to the modern minds, right? Who are looking for evidences and such. So you mentioned evidences in the beginning. So any support, ideas, your skills, funds, whatever way we can put in our services will really help bring this along further.
Excellent. Well, speaking of what we were talking about, it sounds like this is just the icing to the cake. It sounds like there's more to it, more exciting research that will come out of this. So, we're all very excited and grateful as fellow pranic healers and arhatic yogi practitioners worldwide. Looking for this evidence, right? Trying to tell people and explain people, hey, that this really works, right? And we have evidence. I think that's a really exciting time to be a pranic healer and arhatic yogi practitioner for, of course, Master Choa's teachings. And like you said, this can be of service to the entire world. Just to show, again, because it's in public domain, by the way, here's our spiritual school, here's our healing school, and these are the results. So that's very exciting. Well, thank you again so much, Sanjay, for your time. It's been always a pleasure to speak with you and for you to explain such complicated topics in such a simple way. I know when I was reading initially when we were presenting this research in Harvard at the Tai Chi Qigong conference, I was like trying to wrap my brain around this. Like, oh my goodness, this is so technical and detailed, but I appreciate how you explained it in such a simple and easy understanding way for all of us. So thank you so much, Sanjay. My namaste, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Pranic Healing Podcast, and we hope to see you in the next one.